All right, so this time it took me a little bit more to record a video, but um, I have some people this week during office hours as well, and I feel like there are many issues sometimes when we just run the command lines without really reading what we are doing. So I'm gonna go through the steps. Um, like line by line and trying to explain all the steps that we have to take. For this lab, we're learning about intercloud web services for OpenStack-based cloud orchestration. And what we are going to do here is we're going to have another experience with another um, cloud service. Uh, so in this case, we're going to work with Cloud Lab. And the main advantage that we have with Cloud Lab is like we can get access to resources with our Genie credentials. So we have some references here, the OpenStack website, some documentation, some other reading materials for the Cloud Lab multi-cloud. And of course, we have our lab steps here. So what we are going to do is we're going to learn about OpenStack first, about how to create an instructor deployment, how to access the dashboard, the command line, and then we are going to have a use case or application for an intercloud web service. So this is the steps. These are the steps that we're going to follow. We put some of the citations here and the references that you can follow along with the text so you can get more familiar with Cloud Lab. Let's just get started with the lab. So this is pretty much a table where we wanted to have some experience with the OpenStack services. These are all links, so you can just get access to them. We also put some description here for the core services and the type of service that OpenStack offers. And all of them are very interesting. If you go through the links and you try to read a little bit about the documentation, you can learn more about that. If you move along, these are like a whole, I may say, landscape for OpenStack. So you can have a picture of all the services that OpenStack give access to you. So just this is from the website. So you can also find the same figure if you go over the OpenStack but a web service or documentation. All right, so let's get started. So basically we go to the Cloud Lab website here and I have the website open, we log in. Okay, let me just log out because I already in. So let me just get started again. Let me go back. Let me just click in this link. I'm gonna open another tab, login, and you should see this login interface. So basically, if you have a Genie account that we assume that you have since you have worked with Genie before, you just click in this button and then it's gonna open an authorization tool that is provided by Genie. And what you do is pretty much you click in the I'm gonna say in the main figure that says Genie, and then it's gonna open another tab so where you can pretty much have kind of the same user interface that you have for Genie as well when you had to access for the portal. So in my case, since I accessed before, I have here University of Missouri, but in your case, it might be different. If you have cleaned your history or the cookies from your web browser, you might not see the same as I'm seeing here, but in my case, since I've been working with it a couple of times and I didn't clean anything in my browser, I'm seeing here University of Missouri. So in your case, you just click on it, and what it's doing here is like it's authorizing you to get access to Cloud Lab through Genie, and you just wait a minute here, and then you have access to the dashboard. So what you have to do in the lab is you have to create an experiment. So let's go back to the document. Let me just close this and open back here. So we are here right now. We click in Genie user, we pretty much use the authorization from Genie, we get access to Cloud Lab through Genie. So everything is fine here, you shouldn't be having any issues. Then we move on to run an experiment. So we just follow along with the screenshots that we have here. But basically what we're doing is we are going to start a new experiment. So you open the tab experiments, you scroll down a little bit, then you have the start experiment option here. It's gonna open up a profile to select. So I think I talked to you about the use of profiles before, but it's something very common when you have this multi-cloud, um, you know, free access educational purposes, research platform, that most of the time what they want to use is something that is already available. So that's something that it gives us the opportunity to use experiment and reproduce something that is already available or something that somebody else have already done. But in our case, we have to change this profile because this is another profile that we can do something else with it. So we are not interested in this one. So we have to change the profile and look for OpenStack. So since I have already found OpenStack before and I have already used OpenStack before, that's why I have the option here for OpenStack. So if this is the first time you're running, you have to pretty much look for OpenStack here and then filter the ones that has to do with OpenStack. So in particular, this is the one that we want. So something that I also noticed is like sometimes people don't read exactly the description of like what this profile does. So if it's very easy just to get confused, if there's another OpenStack profile and you just pick that one and then maybe you just missed reading, but here pretty much gives you some description of what this profile does. If you are a little bit more curious, you can go over the other profiles as well, and you're gonna notice like most of them has certain description of what this profile does. So it's really important to read very carefully of, what is the profile that you are allocating, and if this is kind of, if this is the one that you need, pretty much. So here it gives you some description about what the profile runs. Some releases, like it depends on what release you have, like the newer, is gonna run OpenStack releases that are newer, and they're gonna use, like, for example, Python 3. So you have different releases here, and then it also gives you some description about like what kind of parameters we have to use, and that we have to read very carefully the documentation and the parameter documentation on, like, on the page that's gonna provide us some description when we move forward. So we just select this one. If we go back to the document, we are right here. We just we change the profile, we look for the OpenStack system that we want. So we are here right now. Then we select the profile, and then we just start following up, select profile. We have the profile that we want. We click next. And then here is the other part where things get a little bit complicated as well. So I have tested this with a couple of releases. So there are certain ones that they don't work for some reason. So I feel like some students so far they have just selected the first one they found here, and that's totally okay. That's totally fine. That's not something that is specified in the lab. But also I know it's kind of easy just to follow along with the screenshots so we provide. So I feel like if you selected this one and you didn't change, you might have some issues where you don't have connectivity, or you can't just move forward with the lab instructions. So for this particular case, and the one that I have tested several times and it's working, is the Queen ones. The PIKE one it might work as well, but for some reason I tried one day and then the other day is working, today is not working. So it's kind of tricky to tell you like which of the releases are like always available and is always working. So for me, at least, the one that it has been always working is the Queen's release. So I'm gonna choose that one. We don't change anything here. So we open advanced. And then here is something else that we need to change a little bit. So the control node is gonna stay like this. Here is what we have to change for the network manager. And this is just another compute node that we have in the experiment. That's it. That's the only thing that we had to change in this step. We changed the release. And then here we put NM for network manager. So if you read a little bit here in the description, what it does, you can also put your cursor on the quotation. It's not a quotation, it's a question mark here. And then you can see what it does like in detail. So after we get that done, we just click on next. And let's see, we need to wait a little bit here. If we go back to the lab instructions, let me just see. Here is like where we release, we decide the release we want. We change the control node, the network manager, and the compute node. We click next, and then we are in this point right now. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna put a name. Cloudlab is a project that we are working on, and the cluster, we can use the Utah one. All of these are available right now. So if you have like all greens, you can try it anyone. I will go for the Utah one. You can see here, very similar to what we have in Genie as well. We can see, we can visualize the topology and how they are connected to each other. We click next here. And then here is optional. They're gonna give you 16 hours for sure. And then you have to, if you want to use for more hours, you need to extend. So basically, I'm gonna show you that part as well if you need to extend it, but by default, they give you 16 hours. If you need to use for more hours and you want to extend it, usually you have to write at least 100 words to justify why you need to use the resources for more time. So I might be able to show you that later when we finish the experiment, but just to give you a heads up, you're probably just gonna need it for 16 hours or less. So let's just keep it in the way it is. Let's just click on finish, and then let's wait. So this part is what is gonna take us at least 10 minutes. Sometimes it might take you a little bit more. So that's the other thing as well that I didn't see. Some people waited. So some people had some issues because their resources, they were not available yet, or they were not ready yet. So that's what makes things a little bit more difficult. And you might get stuck as well in the lab if the resources are not available yet. So here, as you can see the resources. They are getting ready. They are right now yellow. So what we need to do is we need to have all of the nodes in green. And here we have to have like a small icon that says check that is ready. So it might get all greens, but the node that we need to get access to is going to take a little bit more time to get things ready. So there is a lot of things going on behind. So if you go to the portal log, you're going to see here how things are working like in time. So everything this is running in real time. Everything is, if you're just curious and you just want to know more about what is going on behind, this is what the user, doesn't see. But everything that is going on behind, you can see if you go to the portal log here. And yeah, so let's just wait, give it a little bit more time here. And yeah, just give it a time. Again, as I told you in the beginning, you might notice here there are still services running in the back. So this is not ready yet. So basically, if you try to SSH or if you try to ping to this node, it's not going to work because it's still running, it's not still available. So in this case, this one is ready. So if we have the check here, it's ready. So you can also like read some description. If you put your cursor on the node, you can see that the service is finished. So this is ready. So you check the status and you see it's ready. This one is ready too. This one is still running. So we need to wait till it's finished. So that's the other main problem that I saw like some students were facing. So we had to give it a little bit more of time to get things ready. The other thing that you can guys look before things get ready is reading the instructions. And this is going to be very important for you to read. I know I put like some screenshots in the lab, but basically there are like key information here that you need for like accessing the OpenStack dashboard, for example, or for using Grafana interface. So we are not going over Grafana in this lab, but just to give you a heads up, there are going to be Grafana lab in the next, I think, lab in the class. So you're going to get more experience in Grafana later on in the class, but pretty much you can go over these basic instructions and read exactly like the keywords, the key information that we need for accessing the resources, the OpenStack dashboard and stuff. So it's going to be important for you to understand what it says here. Like, for example, the password that you need for your VM is here, is provided here, the user, and how to access the VMs in general. So let's just keep waiting, it's still running, ready and ready. So let's be a little bit patient. You could also be a little bit more curious and start looking here in the tabs. You have the topology view that we have here. Then you can click on the view list, where basically we're going to be having access to the SSH commands that we have, some other information. So this is very similar to Genie. So you also have a RSpec file that is going on behind. So you can read here is exactly what we are doing with user interface. We are doing here in, well, the system is providing you what is going on behind in terms of the code, what is being run, and you can be a little bit more curious and go through this as well. So you can have more idea of what exactly we are doing in terms of, you know, what is behind, what is happening behind. So you have some graphs. We're not going to have anything here for now because we just created the experiment. So if you need to check what a graph looks like, you can come back later when you have some more data to visualize. And this is pretty much some of the information that we are requesting. So we go back to the topology view. We can also check here. Let's go back to the topology. We're still waiting. And then if we check back the document, we have already we have already passed these steps. This one too. And then also here, if we scroll down a little bit, we are gonna see the 3 nodes, and the control node is not still like ready, so it's still booting. So we already went through this. We check the information about the view list, the manifest, and something important to highlight here is after you allocate the resources and after everything is ready, you have to receive emails. So this is kind of the first email that you get when you are allocating the resources. So it's just telling you that the OpenStack instance is finished setting up. But then after that, you might have to, I mean, you're gonna get 2 emails. The first email is gonna be just to tell you that you have requested this experiment. And then after you receive the email that all the nodes are ready, you have to see something like this. And after you see something like this, all of the nodes are gonna be finished here. And then you should be able to access to the nodes. All right, so you might have received an email. I just got an email here. If we go to the list, we have everything ready here. All right, let's go back to here, got the email. And what we're gonna do now is we're going to get access to the dashboard. So let's go back here, we open the instructions. This is the dashboard we want. We open in another tab. And then for the credentials, let's go back to our description here. It tells us you use default admin, and the password is gonna be this one. So let's just copy this. Remember, don't copy space or the point here, the dot, we don't need that. Just need the characters that are in red. So we move back to here and then we paste and we connect it. All right, so this is the OpenStack dashboard. And what we need to do here is we need to create an instance. So let's go back to our OpenStack and we create an instance. So we launch the instance details and say instance 1. I don't need to change anything here, nothing here to change. Count 1, nothing to change. Source, I'm gonna use the Manila one. Then the flavor, I'm gonna use the medium M1, 4 gigabytes. Then in networks, here's what we have to pay attention because we just need 2 of the networks. The external one, we leave it. Then network ports, we don't change anything. Security groups stays default one, keepers, configurations, and the other one, we don't need to change anything. So let's go back to details and launch the instance. This should be very fast, like just a couple of minutes. This is the IP address that we are interested in. So if we go back to the lab instructions, we do this here. These are all the steps of creating and launching flavor, medium, external networks, security groups, and then this is the IP address that we need to pay attention on. Scroll down a little bit. Here's where we are right now. All right, so the instance is ready. So what we do now is go back to here, and we have to SSH to the cloud, to the control node shell. So now we have access to it. We just clear, and then we just follow along with the screenshots. We have access to the control node, exactly the same what we have here so far. Then we SSH to the machine that we just created, to the VM instance that we just created. So to do that, we write SSH Ubuntu, and then the IP address. We should go back here and open the profile. No, it's here, and copy this one. Copy, and then go back here and paste it and enter. Click yes. We need the password. So for the password, we do the same. We open the profiles here. We copy this, copy, paste, enter, and there we are. So we are right now in the VM we just created. So as you notice, we created these resources, we instantiated a VM here, and then we get access to it. Let's just follow along with here. This is what we have just done. We move here. Also, if you are more curious, you can also SSH to your node from your machine. So this is a particular example for Mac machine, Mac OS. So you can pretty much use the same command line that you use for when you SSH to your nodes when we were using Genie. So the thing that's going to change is this one, this direction here. So that direction, you can find it if you go to the view list, is this one. So then if you want to do that from your own computer, you can also SSH to the VM using this command line. Okay, so this is the first step. You have to display some of the network configurations and take a screenshot with the MAC address for grading purposes. I also did that here. So you pretty much if config, and then you get the information about that. So let's do that right now. Let's go back here, if config, and yes, so we have all the data, the information we need here. All right, cool. So now what we have to do is we just follow along a little bit more. And here is where things get a little bit more interesting. So we have to move to a root user. So we have to be following these command lines. If we enter a sudo I, we are now in the root user. Let's just minimize this one because we don't need it right now. So let's just follow along. We need to check if we have this file. We already have this file because we provided that in the profile. So what we do first is we do sudo, and then we run this file. So this is pretty much what you do here is you run this command line to have access to the OpenStack command lines. So you can get information about the machine that you just reserved. So we just run this command line here. We paste it, enter. Okay, wait a minute. I think I have to go to. All right, I think we should go here. Let's just go back. Okay, we're in root. Just check what I did here. Okay, we're here. I'm sorry. This is where we have to go. Okay, we are in our username, and then what we do is we go to sudo I, and then after that is what you have to run this command line. Also, like, it's very easy to get confused. Like, for example, as you notice, I just got confused very easily because I was in my instance, so I have to go back to the control node. So I just made an easy mistake. I just go to the root user, but then very easy to get confused. I just run this command line in the instance that I just created. So I don't need to do that. What I have to do is I have to kind of compare the command lines with the screenshots as well, especially when you have to run command lines. So as you can notice here, I'm in the control user, and then I moved to the root user, and then I run this experiment. So technically, if I run this here, it should work, and it worked. It doesn't show any error or anything like that. So that means it's working. So here, all this part of the lab is just to check the OpenStack command lines. We just click to get more information about the node. Usually it takes like 2 or 3 seconds to show. So this is what it shows. What happens if you want to list the available images? Just click here. enter, then you get the list of the images that you have available. Let's just clear a little bit here to have more space. You can run all of this by yourself, just pretty much to get to know some of the command lines that you can use in OpenStack. Again, here, just follow the instructions. You don't have to do anything rather than do that. This is still some of the command lines to check the capabilities. And here is where we have to start with the experiment, basically. And what we are going to be doing here is we are going to create an experiment. And this experiment should be or can be accessible from an external cloud environment. And for doing that, we're going to use something called RESTful Web Services with Python and Flask. And what happens when you have a RESTful service is you have clients and web services, and the client is going to be requesting some information about certain service. And to show the information, what you are doing is you are using Python and Flask to gather this data to show up in a particular website. So we have in this case some sort of figure here where we have in a particular MSA data center setting, you have different nodes, different compute nodes in the cloud. You have someone who is kind of requesting this information from other places. And this is pretty much in an enterprise setting, just to give you an idea of how this can be applicable. We move a little bit more, and then we have to create a virtual environment to run this. So we're still in our root control user. So we're still here. We don't have to move to any other user. So let's just move a little bit. We check our Python version, place here, and then go back here. We install a virtual environment software. It's going to take a little bit here. Let's see if I can make this a little bit bigger so we can see everything what is going on. There you go. It's still running. All right, it's ready now. So then we move to the next. We create a folder called Cloud API. Then we access to that folder. Then we run the virtual Flask environment. And that's going to create a little bit of, I may say, install certain setup tools and resources that we need to use Flask. Then we just follow along. We install more dependencies that we need. The next step. Enter. Successfully installed. And then we activate a virtual environment. We enter here. All right, let's just do that a little bit. So you can see here, this is a virtual environment. So you have to see flasks here. So that means we are all going to the right direction. You can see here. If you get to this point, you can also like check a little bit what we have so far. We have the flasks folder, and the follow instructions tell us to create a Python file. So to do that, we open a file, or we create a file called intercloud. So let's just create that. Intercloud.py. And then I provided you like a file as well that you can just copy paste, but I'm gonna just go ahead and copy like all of this because it's the same that you have. Something else that is quite interesting here and important is for you to go through this code and not just copy paste without knowing what is going on. So that was another issue that I noticed as well. A person had it, and it was because this person needed to change like certain things in the code, and it didn't work because um, this person didn't change what it was asked to change. So that was another issue that I saw so far as well. So try to go over the code line by line and try to understand what it's doing. So you're not gonna miss the step where you have to um, change something in the code. So this is not too much. So let me just copy paste everything again. Also, I feel like you have to take care of if you have certain index section, you might have some issues as well because it's Python, and most of the time you need to have certain spaces between the lines and things like that. That gets very easy to get confused and make mistakes, and that's make things more complicated to, you know, run or experiments or compile or code uh, without any issue. So let me just copy this one here. And this is the last part. All right, so I will try to run the file. I might have issues. I'm not 100% sure this is gonna work, but I'm gonna to skip here and I'm gonna check where exactly things are not working. So let's say I want to run, okay, you can ls here as well, so you can list and you can check if you really have created your Python file. So let's just go and run the experiment. All right, so apparently everything is working in my code, so nothing's wrong so far. We have very much the same thing what we have in the code here. But since I was telling you, there was some information that we needed to change, because as you notice here in the document, I've tried to highlight because this is some of the things, small things that you can easily get confused and you forget it. So there's some information that you have to fill out. So for sure, your Flask program is not gonna work, or it's not gonna be able to access to certain information if you're not specifying here, like certain information about your project or about your instance. So let's go back to here. I just closed service. So let me just clear it up a little bit. I'm still in the virtual environment. So let's check here. All right, so what we're gonna do here is pretty much we have just created our Python program, and we got all the information from here. As I told you before, you have to check you have to open this file actually to get the information that you need to fill out here. So that's what I'm gonna do right now. I will start copying. The domain name is default. And let me just open the file. And let me just add here what I need. Default. For domain name is default 2. Project name is admin. Okay, let me just make sure I'm doing it right. It's admin here as well. Username and password. Username and password is also given us here. We copy this password here, and then we copy the URL. The version, the API version is identity. API version is 3. So just put that here, and then we saved. All right, so now let's just go back to here. Basically, we need to run the application, and to do that, we write Python enter cloud, and is active. The Booker is active, and is everything running so far. So we don't need this anymore. Let's just clear it up. And then go back to the document. And then we need to go back to the root and get to know the IP address. We need to get the IP address from here, this IP address. So let's just copy this one. Just copy, open another tab, paste. We need to open 8090 port, and then we'll list that. So that's exactly what we have here. ifconfig, root user. This is the IP address that we need. And then we should be able to go. So it's 8090 port slash list. There you are. So it doesn't look like very, checking, but let me just put it in a way that it's going to be easier for us to follow along. So far we had one instance running. So we used, in this exercise, what we did is we used one of the OpenStack services to get access to an external virtual machine. So the information that we are getting here is the information that we get from the instance that we just created. So let me just get some details from here. So this is the name of the instance. And let me just make this smaller again. Let's see if I can find a way to make things smaller. Maybe I can go back in one line. No. Okay, let me just try to make it this way. All right, anyways, so we have the ID, which is this one. So if we check the ID address, the ID with the instance that we just created here, it should be the same, but the name is instance one. We got that one. We got it running. This is the IP address. Let me check if this is the same. 10, 11, 10, 21. 10, 11, 10, 21. And let's just make like a fun exercise. So let's say we want to create another instance. So we just launch with, let's put it a name, instance 2. This is not part of the lab, but just to give you an idea of, what are we getting access to basically. The source, we use the same flavor. Let's pick the medium one, networks. We get both of them. We don't need the external one. And we don't have to change anything else here. So we launch the instance and it's gonna take us a little bit. We have two instances here. Let's wait for it. It's still building and it's running. So what is gonna happen if we click here and we update? We should have another instance now. Okay, it's just getting a little bit hard to see. Oh wait, there you go. There you go. All right, so we have two instances. This is what we just created. This is the ID, it's running. These are the IP addresses, 10, 11, 10, 18. Let me see, 10, 11, 10, 18. That's exactly what we just created. And see. So this is like pretty much to use an API to get access to information about other instance that is located in any other place in the cloud. And to do that, you use OpenStack services. So if you are a little bit more curious and you want to check, you can perfectly see here what is going on in the service when you are requesting. You might know what it means, this HTTP get 200 message. What happened when you have a 403? So you might know this information, but just take you a little bit of, research to know what are these HTTP 200 and HTTP 403 messages. So we're going to stop here with Control C, and let's open back our file intercloud. And yes, so let's see here how we are getting this information, because we are using this sub process here to get the information, and we are using Nova to do that. So if you remember in the first steps, what we did is pretty much we started running some of the OpenStack, services, and how to get to know like information about other, maybe instances that you have running in other clouds, in other clouds. So if you remember this command line here, this is what exactly we are using in this API to call the data, to call the information about this particular instance. So I just wanted to show you that. All right, so let me go back to the part where we stayed, where we finished. Okay, so we are here right now. This is something that you can also check. Of course, there are other free edition REST API clients that you can use, like plugins for Chrome, for example. So I installed this API Hub software, kind of. It's not a software, well, it's a software, but it's like an extension, Chrome extension that I found and I installed in my computer. And I was able to just get the information with the same IP address, the same port, and listing it. So you should be able to get some experience with this as well. Having like an API extension. You can try with this one in particular, you can try with another one. So you can get information about other instances using this Chrome plugin or extension. All right, so here, what you need to provide for grading, the first part is providing the screenshots of the network topology. You have to go to the dashboard, the OpenStack dashboard, and then look for network topology. And you have to provide us with screenshots of these two before and after you create. You can show us the small one or the normal one as well. So you can see there will be differences before you create an instance and after you create an instance. So choose to give you a heads up, if you watch the video first, you might be able to take a screenshot before, but there are certain changes in this graph after you create the instances. So you might be noticing here something different since we have two instances. So you might know what is the difference before and after. So for the second one, for the number 2, you need to provide the screenshot of the controller node with the MAC address clearly displayed. We did that here in one of the previous steps. So this is what we need. I also provided you with a screenshot of that, but you have to provide us. The third one is using some of the OpenStack command lines to create some, summary of resources in the cloud infrastructure. We need to know CPUs, RAM, floating IP addresses, service security groups and volumes. So we need that as well. And then to do this, it's going to be mostly to kind of providing us some of the manifests. As I told you before, this is pretty much what we have in the RSpec file. So you go through this in general, read about it, look where nodes are created. And here in particular, we're asking you to tell us like the steps that you need to do in the process of adding an extra compute node. And that's what we're gonna need. You can submit like screenshots of the RSpec file, like where exactly you have to add more lines here where you add in like another compute node. So that's what you had to show us in this number 4. So number 5 is gonna be a little bit challenging, I think. But if you understand the concept of having, a compute node, a VM instance allocated here in OpenStack, what is the process that you have to do to create a node in AWS? You can use your AWS Educate account, or you can also use just a regular AWS account. And what you need to do is you need to write a web service client, and you can use any language of your preference to do that. You can also use the same that we provided here, and we use Flasks and Python 2. You can use the same here, but the way you're gonna get access to the information you need is gonna be different, of course, in here. So take a look at on the code that we provided, understand what is going on in every line, what we are writing, why we are writing this specific line in the code. We tried to put some like details here of why we are doing it and what is the purpose of each line, command line. So try to follow this. If you want to use the same code, is fine. But the difference between what we have done here and the exercise that you have to do is pretty much you, instead of having a VM in here, in the OpenStack a virtual machine, you are going to have a AWS lab, AWS node that you're going to get access to it using a web service client. So we need to display the information of that in a JSON file. And then you're going to get that information from the Cloud Lab controller node. And we need a screenshot of the website with the HTML code of your submission report. So we just need to know, we need to request and display the cloud information. So we can have the same information as we had here, but of course this has to be the IP address of the EC2 instance that you just created. And yes, so after you finish with everything, it's recommended to go back to your experiments here. And the way you just release the resources is click into here, this button, and then you terminate the experiment. You terminate it, and then it should be it. All right, so it's terminating, and then it should be good. Yeah, so that's pretty much what we have for the lab this week. I hope this video is useful. As you see, everything that I have just follow along. It worked for me, and you really need to pay attention in like the small details that where you have to specify the parameters and where you have to specify certain details about the computing nodes that you are locating. So I think that's the key, and you should be good. Thank you.